a minute, just one moment.
Welcome to Astro Talk, Traditional Astrology, today with a very special guest, Penelope Sitter. Welcome from California.
Thank you, Volker. Happy to be here.
Our guest was born in 1952, and she will now tell the story how she found Morinus. You have the stage.
Okay. Well, I was not at all interested in astrology. And some friends had said, oh, let me read your natal chart to you. And I said, I've got more important things to do. And it doesn't interest me. And I actually had started getting interested in some divinatory methods, specifically dowsing, the I Ching, and especially the dowsing of flower essences and homeopathy. There's someone I met in a women's self-healing group that I had organized. And it was because I had had some health problems and I was looking for natural ways or holistic ways to address them. And I was bowled over by the efficacy of specifically dowsing, and especially dowsing flower essences and homeopathy, because flower essences and homeopathy have something called indications. And generally the way you do, let's just go to homeopathy, the way you do it is you get a case of someone and then you use those, you use the facts that the person relates to you and what you observe to choose a remedy whose indications comport with that. And we did the reverse, that my friend would douse what homeopathic remedy or flower essence was appropriate. Then we'd read the indications. And I was stunned and delighted and kind of ecstatic about how accurate it was and the way it not only perhaps provided a remedy, which is difficult for me to discern, to tell you the truth, whether something works or whether it's something else. But it was a self-diagnosis. And I would say, well, that's exactly it. And it did increase my self-knowledge. But so that had opened me up a bit. So when another friend said, okay, I want to read you your natal chart, I assented. And she began with the natal chart doing, I guess you would call this psychological, primarily psychological delineation. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, aren't we all? And my feeling, not my words or thoughts, were kind of like, yeah, that's how it is to be a person, which means, as I later realized, I was projecting myself onto others. But when I went, wow, what's that? How could this happen? Was when she began to look just at the modern planets and Saturn, as I recall, it's quite a while ago. She went back in time a few years, maybe 3 or 4 years, and accurately, quite accurately characterized the most impactful periods of time during those years, and did not mention any period of time when I said, oh, no, there was nothing particularly noteworthy there about how I was affected or my life was affected. And that was just outer planet and Saturn transits, which is quite stunning to me that had such a big impact on me when I look back on it. So I said, okay, there's something to this. I have to change my almost logical positivist view of the world, which had already begun cracking from those divinatory means, through those means. And look at this. So I got Isabel Hickey's book. I think it's called Astrology, a Cosmic Science. And I read it and I thought, yeah, this makes sense to me. And then I began looking at charts. But with modern methods that quite soon became very unsatisfactory to me. I read the modern authors and, of course, the Mountain Astrologer and other things. But yeah, interesting, but I was dissatisfied. There's something more. This is too profound to be, for there not to be something else. And what began to happen was I began to feel like a fraud. I began to not realize I don't know how to delineate a chart. I can reiterate what everyone says about what the signs mean and the planets and the aspects and the transits, but I can't delineate a chart. I certainly can't synthesize it. I don't really know where to begin, what weight to give each factor, what meaning to give each of the celestial bodies, what priority, which techniques to use when and how. I began to feel like a fraud, and I couldn't tolerate that. So I was looking for something else. First, I found Jyotish, and studied with Hartefaux. And I was like, this is wonderful. This is beautiful. And it was great. And I began to feel like, yeah, I could see how to approach a chart, where to enter it, what to prioritize, what weight to give things. And I didn't go deeply into Jyotish, but I studied it enough to really say, to be very positive about feeling I had found something much more like what I wanted. But I missed the tropical zodiac. I liked the tropical zodiac. And I also wanted a tradition from the region of the world from which I and my ancestors come. I wanted to know, what is this world I live in, which is, the same world as the Indians live, but also notably different in numerous ways. So for those reasons, I was looking, and lucky me, I happened upon, through a friend, Robert Corre's online classes, and I was in New York for several months, and studied in his the classes he taught and probably still teaches. I'm not sure. I don't know about that. In person in his Soho flat. And I was just bold. Again, I was bowled away, Volker. I was so excited to find Morin. That was the most exciting thing to me. I was so happy about that.
So before we continue for the copyright, I have only the right to publish our talk today uncut and unedited on freely accessible video platforms, and our guest Penelope Sitter has the right to shorten, cut, edit, or add however she likes. I will send the MP4 file via WeTransfer to her, so she can do with the material whatever she wants. Is that okay with you?
Totally fine.
Good. Now we have a special site on astrotalk.vonabisw.de, and it's called Talk with Penelope Sitter about the Morinus Determination Doctrine, why we needed a new translation of Morin's book 21, which is this one. We will talk about that. And we will talk about Morinus today, and then we will talk about the book 21 and how it came about, and the importance of horoscopic method, the paucity of attention given it, and the basis of method as Morin explains it. And in a second part, next week, Penelope agreed to do a complete delineation of the chart of Morinus, which will be very interesting. For people who want to know more about Penelope, there is a very long conversation. No, this is wrong. This is the chart of Brennan. No, this is here. Somewhere here I had a talk which you did with Chris Brennan. Talk. Oh, this is it. This is it. Okay, now this is the talk. And it's 2 hours and 47 minutes. And a lot of information can be taken from that video, and we will try not to repeat something which is already on this other video. So this is the book, And this is the reason why we are together today, because I found out about you on this video with Chris Brennan, that you translated a new translation from Latin of Morin's book 21. But now you are in the course with Robert Corre. Continue your story.
Well, I felt like another astrologer, longtime astrologer who'd been practicing consistently over, I think, if I remember correctly, 20 years or so. And he said that in the first quarter of Robert's class in forumonastrology.com is where Robert has his website and his link, opening to his classes. He said the scale fell from his eyes. And I felt exactly the same way. That phrase has stuck with me. I felt relieved. I felt like I could trust what I was saying. I felt like I knew how to enter a chart and to delineate it. I was learning, but I thought, this is it. This is the way I can feel real and feel that I'm saying something truthful and helpful. So I studied with Robert. I wrote an article fairly early on the nativity of the wonderful jazz singer Sarah Vaughan, called The Down to Earth Sky, because the core of Morin's, really if you want to say one basic thing about Morin's approach to horoscopic method, it is that he brings the sky to earth. And then I continued to study with Robert. I was practicing using Morin's method, and I taught for a few years locally in the little town where I live. And I began to write. I wanted to write a book on house combinations using Morin's method, and because it's so important and so powerful, so revealing. And I was using the Baldwin version of Book 21. And when I wanted to quote or cite to a passage, I picked up the Latin of Book 21 and continued to find errors and unsatisfactory renditions of Morin's words, and outright errors, some outright additions, and some deletions, and many, many paraphrases, and translation that doesn't get what I find Morin's writing to be beautiful, particularly beautiful for how rational, how well-reasoned it is, how well he constructs his arguments. And I find how clearly he sets them out. He numbers his points. Things follow really, in my view, beautifully one from another. And so much of that got lost in the Baldwin version. And I couldn't use the quotations. I couldn't make a citation to the passages, because I think there were one or two quotes or references that I didn't feel the need to translate. But all the other ones, which were numerous, at least in the draft I was making, I had to change them. So I became frustrated in two ways. I couldn't really use the book. I had to interrupt my thinking and my work to translate. And second, I thought it was an abomination of this brilliant, beautiful, and very important astrological text. It is, Morin's Astrologia Gallica is a 26-volume treatise published in 1661 posthumously. He died about 5 years earlier. And it is the foundational book. It's the book where Morin sets out most clearly the method. The earlier books set a context for the work, philosophical and religious, and cosmological. I haven't read them, but you can find on Robert Corre's website, I believe it's still there, the summary by, who's the man who did the summaries on sacred texts? His name is not coming to mind, but if you want to see a summary of the 26 books, I think it's still on Robert's forum on astrology.com website. But the books 13 through 26 have been translated to English except for book 20, and those are the ones that focus most specifically on astrology itself. So I won't list what each of the books does, but they book 21 is the theoretical and methodological foundation of the work, and the other ones talk about the usual things: the houses, the houses and their formation, the signs and their formation, the planets and their dignities and strengths, dignities and abilities and strengths. He also, the 25th book is on mundane astrology, the 26th on elections and interrogations. By the way, he rejected interrogations on theoretical grounds, with which I disagree. I think he made a theoretical error there and a practical error. So that, and then of course, directions, revolutions, and transits, because Morin's predictive method is to use the natal as a basis, of course, because nothing can happen in the life that the natal chart does not show as a potential of the life. But will it be actualized? What will be actualized and when will it be actualized? So Morin begins with looking at the primary directions. And then after selecting the planets that are active by direction, he looks at solar revolution, the current or whatever year he wants to look at solar revolution, and confirms that the primary directions are also a potential. They have to be brought to actuality through solar and lunar revolutions and transits.
Can I ask you something
yes,
in that
please,
context?
Please.
If you use primary directions, one thing is very important. You have to have the exact time of birth.
Yes.
How does Morin de Villefranche, Jean-Baptiste Morin de Villefranche, solve the rectification problem?
Well, I can't think of a time when he discussed rectification. I'm not saying he didn't, but it doesn't come to mind. I don't remember.
He must have done it because.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Look at his chart. It's rectified to the second. So,
okay. But there's no information what sort of method he used for rectification.
Yes. Well, I'm sure he used primary directions, and he solar and lunar revolutions, and he directs the revolution charts.
Okay.
To narrow down the time when things, and then transits. I'm sure he did all those things. And Alexey Borealis is doing some great work on Morin and using Morin's method in horary and natal astrology. And you can find his website or his YouTube channel, and he recently put up something on rectification, I noticed.
So here is the Morin School of Predictive Astrology. And here is his channel. Okay.
I think you'll.
Astrology Without Nonsense with Alexey Borealis. Okay. Have you contact with him?
Yes. He had published a 2-volume work called Mysteries of Medieval Astrology. The first volume on horary, using Morin's method and doing a great job with traditional horary and adding some very interesting techniques. I'm no expert in horary, but it's just really beautiful job on horary. And the second volume on natal astrology, using Morin's method, again, just a terrific job. His focus is on making exact predictions in natal astrology, exact predictions of major life events: marriage, illness, career, money, the basics, and the major events related to those things, the birth of children and so on. And then he republished it just a few months ago, 2-3 months ago,
13th
as
of May 2025.
as a predictive astrology textbook. And he asked me to write the foreword, which I did.
Okay.
And he has an online class. He has it in English. He has it in Russian and English. But he has the horary part of his program in English online. And as I understand, he's working on his natal course in English for making exact predictions, which is something I'm very interested in studying with him.
When you talk to him next time, I would be interested to interview him. So if he is available, let me know.
I was going to mention that to you, that I thought you should interview him, and Robert Corre, whom I believe you're going to interview.
Robert Corre has said he will do an interview in September, but as
wonderful.
Considering the fact that you are befriended with him, Alexey, could you ask him if he could send me an email, and then we do it? Okay. Now,
yes, I will. One more person I want to mention, Rodolfo Melchior, a Brazilian man who's who is translating all of Astrologia Gaelica into Portuguese. He would be very, very interesting to interview. I'll be happy. I've been in some contact with him, and I'd be happy to write to him as well.
Well, very good. Two interesting people to interview. For next week, we will do practice in delineation with the chart of Morin de Villefranche. So we will get a complete delineation according to the methods and the doctrines. Today, we want to talk why it is important to have the new translation. We did that. And now we come to the importance of horoscopic method. And you wrote the paucity of attention giving it and the basics of method as Morin explains it. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, I want to make a comment. I think you have a link to the Wessex Astrologer website. They're the publisher, a wonderful publisher. They did a beautiful job and are great to work with, where I set out some examples of why we need a new translation. I think you've linked to that. But if people want to see it in some more detail, which again are just examples, they might want to see that. Method. May I make a suggestion that I talk about the method, and then we talk about how important it is to give method attention as the fundamental consideration when you pick up a horoscopic figure.
Go ahead, do it.
Okay, so please interrupt me whenever you need. If there's something
that's fine.
something I've made unclear to you, it's probably going to be unclear to others. So I have a few notes to remind me of what I want to cover. So I start with the model of the geocentric cosmos. The human mind needs a model to work with a complex system. For horoscopic astrologers, that's the geocentric cosmos. The most fundamental division in the model, in the geocentric cosmos, is between the terrestrial realm and the celestial realm, between earth and sky. Now, just as a side note, Morin actually divides the cosmos into 3 realms: the terrestrial realm below the moon's sphere, the celestial realm that includes the circle, the sphere of fixed stars, and the primum calum, to which we'll return, is the celestial realm. And the realm in between, where the planets move, is the ethereal realm, which Morin says has not only an ethereal nature, but an elemental and celestial nature as well. So, and the other note I want to make is that Morin adopted Tycho, is it Tycho or Tycho Brahe's model of the geocentric cosmos, which puts the Earth at the center, of course, the stationary Earth, orbited by the 2 lights, sun and moon, and the minor planets, Mercury through Saturn, orbiting the sun. But functionally, and certainly for our purposes, and the way I continue to imagine and think of and speak of the geocentric cosmos is in the more traditional model. So the major division is between Earth and sky. We know what the sky is, the signs, the planets, and the fixed stars, and the structuring circles, especially the structuring great circles that in which the celestial configuration takes place. And the terrestrial realm is everything below the sphere of the moon. There's the stationary Earth at the center, but there's also the mundane space, the stationary mundane space that surrounds the Earth. So it's divided, this cosmos is divided most fundamentally into those realms. The celestial sphere represents the celestial realm. The mundane sphere represents the terrestrial realm. You see the Earth and earthly things on Earth, not in the sky. There are analogies to earthly things in the sky, but there are no earthly things there. So the houses in a horoscopic figure represent Earth and earthly things. Therefore, to me, it seems quite logical that the houses must be divisions of the mundane sphere. Now, when we do astrology, we say that we're bringing the sky to Earth. We're using celestial configurations to speak of earthly things, which means we do need to bring the sky to Earth. We need to see how this realm, this contiguous but different, very different realm, but analogous, impinges on, flows into, because Morin uses a causal model. Actually, he has a very interesting chapter in section 1 of book 21, chapter 7, in which he asks, are the celestial bodies signs or causes of earthly events, of sublunary things, or are they both? And he concludes, I think it's an excellent chapter I recommend to everyone. He concludes they're both signs and causes, and if they weren't causes, they couldn't be signs. And he ties this in with the question of fate and self-determination, which we can get to if we'd like and have time. Let's see. We have to bring, if we're going to talk about earthly things using the sky, we need to bring the sky to Earth. And that's what Morin does by dividing the mundane sphere. He uses the Regiomontanus houses. He did create his own system because of some problems that typical of quadrant houses at certain latitudes. He created the Morinus system, but the ascendant in that system isn't always identified, seldom identified with the first house cusp. I really haven't paid attention.
My ascendant in the Morinus system is in the 12th house. So that's something new to consider.
Yes, and I haven't paid attention to charts in the Morinus system, I'll confess, because I start with, it's got to be a quadrant system. The problem, in my view, and there's some good reasons for that, but I think it might be too much to get into it too deeply. But we could, if we like. So I start with interest in the quadrant systems.
May I ask you in that context, in the 1990s, in the astrological communities, we had the development of Hindsight Project and new translations of old texts. We had Ben Dykes in the 2000s, and since then of old Arabic texts. And Professor Hyland from Osnabrück, in his Habilitationsschrift Hadriana Genitura, came to the conclusion that the old astrologers in Hellenistic times used the whole sign houses. When did you personally hear for the first time about the whole sign houses, and what was your reaction?
Early in the hindsight project,
And
because
what was your approach and reaction to this information that there has been a very old house system which was applied by Vettius Valens and other people like that? Obviously, you are not as convinced as I am because I changed to the whole sign houses personally since then. What was your emotion rationale not to do what I did?
Well, that was quite a while before I found Morin in the early 2000s. And so I didn't have the perspective of Morin's method or his discussion of houses at that time to see it. But I wasn't convinced. And the fundamental problem I see with it, and this became much clearer to me with the study of Morin, is that if Morin says a house system should not divide the earth at a place in the calum, it's in the sky, it should divide the calum at a place on earth, because it's a division of the mundane space represented as the mundane sphere. And so the whole sign houses, they do connect earth and sky. The problem I have is they only to the extent that the houses divide the mundane space, in my view, do they bring the sky to earth.
But they have an advantage. They are valid for Eskimos, whereas the other systems are not.
There are practical advantages, but if it's easier to apply something that's untrue and more difficult to apply something true, and it fails in certain ways that are minor given where the population of the earth lives, but
Okay.
significant,
Okay.
then I would choose the true. And that's my view. But
Okay.
The practical problems are real and need to be discussed and managed. But the other thing I want to say about this is, so the whole sign houses, they connect, and the equal sign houses connect earth and sky at the ascendant and descendant, and nowhere else. From then, it's just going back into the sky and purporting to divide the earth from places in the calum. The porphyry system, of course, is a quadrant system, so it divides the earth also and brings the sky to earth also at the midheaven and the lower heaven, but then divides the quadrants on the ecliptic. So I have a number of reasons to prefer a quadrant system, and a number of reasons to say that the houses should not be divisions first of the ecliptic, but of the mundane space, the mundane sphere, and also why the Regiomontana system quadrates the sphere with the horizon and meridian, of course, and then constructs great circles of position that intersect the horizon and meridian at the south and north points of the horizon, and divide the equator into 12 equal parts,
So
and project those divisions onto the ecliptic.
Next week, when you do the complete delineation of the chart of Jean-Baptiste Morin de Villefranche, you will use Regiomontanus, right?
I would, yes, that's the house I use. That's the system I use. I'm happy to look at it. You have mentioned looking at other house systems. I'm happy to look at it in whole sign.
Well, we will do a little bit today, but next week you will strictly confine yourself to Regiomontanus and do a complete delineation. Will that be 3 or 6 hours? How much time do we need?
We'll find out. And I won't say complete, because astrology is never complete. A natal assessment is never complete. There's always more to see.
But I suppose 3 hours is probably a realistic estimate.
I hope it's not 6, Volker. I'll tell you that.
3 hours would be okay then. Okay, good. Now, coming to your next point, the importance of horoscopic method and the paucity of attention given to it.
Yeah. So let me start with Morin's theory of astrological signification and his method of determination. The theory of astrological signification is that no celestial body signifies any earthly thing except as its significations are determined by its placement among the houses of a horoscopic figure. Shall I say it again? Or was it totally clear?
No, it's not necessary, because people who want to know how this works will come next week and you will show them.
Okay.
Because that's
and
what
then
you,
the method
next,
of
that this is so important, because to understand what you are saying is very abstract, but to see it in the workshop of your practice next week, it's much easier to understand what you meant, and then people can go back to this video today and understand what you said. Okay?
Yes, I totally agree. So, and if you like, we could, I have actually planned to do quite a review of the basics of Morin's practice and some of his theory.
I don't think
And
that
if we,
I don't
and
think that I don't
if
think
you're
that's
agreeable,
I don't think that's a good approach. If you consider that we do a lot of time next week, and I can ask you in every step, I can ask what I don't understand. I think this practical approach to demonstrate how Morin works and how you as his pupil, so to say, then in that situation, then you can implement all the theoretical background when you do it at the, for example, if you delineate the ascendant and the ruler of the descendant and the placement of the ruler of the descendant in another house and the planet who rules the ruler of the descendant, that is what Morin does. And then in all those delineation aspects of a concrete chart, the theory of Morin gets more plausible for the people who view our video. But I give you the stage, do what you want to do now, what you think necessary in preparation of next week.
okay, I'll cut back. I had thinking through this. I'll cut back some of what I had in mind to say before. So I would like to review some really basic things, because some of the concepts will be new, and to have the background of hearing them stated, even though only abstractly, is useful. And if we like, we can pull up a chart and demonstrate a couple things, not with a full chart delineation, but just look at this example. This is what I mean. If you like, I would be happy to do that.
Well, if you have my chart here, at the end of our today's talk, we do something. You can take my chart whenever you like.
Okay, great. So that's the theory of signification. Planets signify and cause, because Morin sees them as signs and causes using a very Aristotelian model. Anything, any sublunary thing, except as the houses determine their meaning. You have to bring the sky to earth. And the method of determination follows from the theory of signification, which is that the houses of a chart that a celestial body influences in specified ways determine the body's significations to the matters of that house. And those specified ways that a planet influences a house are location in the house, the most powerful, most efficacious determination, rulership of the house cusps, but also of a portion of the house. Morin will use what doesn't confine the ruler to the ruler of the cusp. The ruler of the cusp is, except in some unusual circumstances, the most powerful and important. Then and that includes rulership by exaltation, and in a way that's quite different from those two, also by triplicity. Location, rulership, aspect or antician to the cusp, to a planet located in the cusp, or to a house ruler. And opposite house location. Every planet in a house influences the opposite house. And in fact, Morin says that the essential meanings of the house are the meanings of the house, and every house has as its accidental meanings the meanings of the opposite house. Very interesting use of opposition in this dual world we inhabit, where everything is self and other in our experience. Now, I want to go into universal and particular significators. This is a universal significator is a celestial body undetermined by the houses of a figure. And each planet has an analogy with a whole category of earthly things. The sun, and is said to rule those things. So the sun rules the king, the father, honors, the heart, lions, life, and so on. And you could go on with all the planets, we know that, by listing, and even the kind of trees and minerals and waters and land they rule. So it's those analogies that are the planet's universal significations, are their analogies. To get to, you can't look at a chart without using determination through the houses and say whether is the sun the father in this chart, is the sun the king, is the sun what the sun is. And the same with every planet. Is Mercury intelligence in this chart? Is Venus the female love partner? You don't know until you've determined their meanings through the houses. And it can also be a significator of something with which it doesn't have an analogy, when it influences by location, rulership, aspect, or antician, or opposite house location. I may repeat that a few times. The house that signifies those things, that represents and signifies those things. So it becomes the particular significator of a matter only when it influences the appropriate house. Now, Morin disagrees with Ptolemy in Book 21 several times, and throughout Astrologia Gallica, to distinguish his view. And in the third chapter of the first section of Book 21, Morin discusses the abuse of universal significators. And all the chapters are important, but I would certainly recommend reading that one. And he says Ptolemy gave the father to the sun in every diurnal chart, and the moon to the mother in every diurnal chart, and gave in nocturnal charts gave the Saturn to the father and Venus to the mother. He says that is the abuse of universal significators. He also says Jupiter is a universal significator of wealth. He has an analogy to wealth. He rules wealth, but he does not particularly signify wealth in a chart unless he influences a house of wealth, which is primarily the second, but we won't go into that, but you could mention the 11th, for instance, or the 8th as the partner's or spouse's money, or the other's money in general. Ptolemy also looked at the Mercury in every chart for the mental nature, and the moon for the moral nature or moral habits. And Morin says no, unless those planets are properly determined to the appropriate houses. And then then we should go on to distinguish celestial state and terrestrial state. A planet's celestial state is its condition, we call it, is its all the factors of its placement, I use the word placement to refer to all the factors, not just location. So it's placement in the sky. So that would be, of course, sign, occupation, and the resulting dignities and disabilities. And Also, whether the sex polarity of a planet in the sign of the same or different sex, female or male planet in a feminine or masculine sign. And the planet's dispositor, the ruler of the sign in which the planet occupies, its dispositor, the nature and condition of this dispositor, and what relationship the planet has to its dispositor, if any, which is very important. Using Morin's method, you don't look at a planet out of domicile without also looking at its dispositor and its relationship to its dispositor. There's Morin says some quite interesting things about that. So also whether the planet is east or west of the sun or moon, the other aspects it receives, the nature and state and form of aspect, combustion to the sun, and its own position and motion in the sky, including especially whether its direction of motion, direct or retrograde, and also its speed of motion. So that's the most important things you look at are the sign occupation for dignities and abilities, the dispositor's nature and condition and the relationship of the sign ruler to the dispositor, and the dispositor to the planet, and aspects and Tisha. Those are, and certainly combustion and direct or retrograde motion are very strong considerations. Terrestrial state, also called local determinations, are a planet's placement among the houses of a chart. So again, the house in which it's located, the houses it rules, the aspects and tissue with the cusp planted in the house or a house ruler, and opposite house location. That's terrestrial state. Terrestrial state does not change the condition of a planet. Morin says the houses do not influence the planets. They don't concur in the condition of the planet. They give a determination to the planet. They have a determinative virtue and not an influential virtue. So is this working?
Yes.
For you, Volker? Okay.
As I said, I would assume if somebody just watches our talk today, we would leave them totally confused.
Oh, you think so?
Well, it's very abstract, and they haven't read book 21. Well, they can buy book 21 and then watch the video, and that would be a good idea. But most people will not buy the book because people are as they are. They want it. They want the light way. But next week, when you demonstrate in practice what you just elaborated on, then things become clear. And then people will, yes, after the video of next week, people will come back to this video if they want to. And then they will understand, oh, that's what she meant. That's because she was doing this and this and this. Oh, now,
yeah,
the penny drops.
Yes. So I'll say a few words about the way Morin defines the essential dignities and abilities. He uses, of course, domicile, exaltation, triplicity as the dignities, and exile, which I think he uses the word exile, which I very much like for what we usually call detriment. Exile
in German, the astrologer talk about exile and not detriment.
Oh, nice. Okay. Nice. I like it because it is as far from home as you can be.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
I like it. I like that. And of course, fall is opposite exaltation. You're either raised up or brought down. Again, they're opposite. He defines triplicity differently from others. I love his definition of triplicity. A planet is in triplicity in the signs in the signs of the element or elements in which it has a domicile. It's at home. Triplicity to me is a lot about being at home. It has an analogy to the trine. You know, it's well, yeah,
it's three trines, right?
And it's very much about well, what triangle are you in? Where are you at home? You're at home. We even use that phrase in English, in your element. Oh, I'm in my element at that place and not at that one. I'm at home. And if you look at what honor by triplicity means, that really fits with that. So he also recognizes the state of being peregrine. He defines it differently from other astrologers. This is not so terribly important, but it is a point he makes in book, I think it's book 15, on the dignities and debilities, yeah, certainly. He distinguishes peregrine from simply peregrine. So a planet is peregrine. It's wandering. It's not at home. It's not in the element of its domicile, out of its element. In any element, in the elements, the 2 or 3 for the lights, in which it does not have a domicile. It's peregrine, no matter whether it's also fallen or given another dignity or debility. But it is exaltation, so on. And it's simply peregrine when it's out of its element, not in a sign that is of the element of its 1 domicile for the lights or 2 domiciles for the minor planets, and is not in one of the other dignities or debilities. Peregrine in itself is a neutral state, but Morin says a peregrine planet can become quite beneficially conditioned or quite unfavorably conditioned by several conditions, the most important of which are whether the planet is in a benefics or a malefics sign, peregrine in a benefics or malefic sign, and also the aspects it receives from benefic, just the favorable or unfavorable aspects. And a well-placed peregrine planet can be considered very well placed in Morin's view.
Okay.
So he rejects, famously, and this bothers people, he rejects the other, what I would call, well, I won't call them minor dignities, because that in itself would be, differing views, there'd be different views on that. But he rejects terms and deacons and
Yes.
all the other.
How about yourself? Do you use them despite of Morin's rejection?
No, I haven't. For me, the 2 things. I like to focus. When I practice law, I couldn't be a generalist. I needed to focus. And so I want to focus on Morin. The other thing is that it's about weight and priority. Morin uses the triplicities, the different triplicities, and he uses them differently from how other astrologers use them. For instance, in the triplicity ruler of the sect light, in section 2 of book 21, chapter 7, he reviews 2 charts. He rejects that technique and reviews 2 charts of Abu al-Khayyat, Abu Ali al-Khayyat, I believe is how to say it. And he shows that those are hypothetical charts. I wasn't able to reproduce them, and I don't think others have. They were just hypothetical charts offered by the astrologer and used by others as well. He says the conclusion, so the position of the sect ruler, the triplicity ruler of the sect light, is taken to be as I understand it, an indication of the general fortune or misfortune of the life. Morin says, and uses his method to show how much more clearly you can see the fortunes and misfortunes of the life, how much more powerfully written and how much more basically written. One reason I don't add other things is because I love the simplicity. I love focusing on the basics, because astrology with the basics, which is where Morin puts his focus. He hones it down to the basic considerations, which I consider the most powerful ones, having the most priority and weight. And so I don't want to add anything I don't need. It's the principle of, why is the word leaving me starts with P? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's the simplicity of using the things you need and not adding things you don't need. And I put.
How about the cosmology? Before you found astrology, you were starting to get away from the more materialistic way of life and becoming more spiritualistic. And there is an option. When I discussed the life of Charles Burnett with him, we were talking about Heinrich von Carinthia, Henry of Carinthia, and Adela de Bath, a more Platonic approach. I suppose we can have consensus that Morin de Villefranche is not a Platonic thinker. He is definitely, if he is anything, an Aristotelian thinker, even if he is that. How about yourself? Did you follow Morin in his cosmology as well, or did you reserve another faith in what is above the fixed stars?
I love Morin's cosmology, and it is to a great extent Christianized Aristotelianism.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it's not Platonic.
No, well, I'd be very interested to hear what Rodolfo Melchior would say about that. The Brazilian man who's translating Astrologia Gaelica into Portuguese. I would love to hear him speak on that. For Morin, the God is the author of nature. I haven't seen where he posits like a separate kind of architect or craftsman to be the architect. God is the author of nature, and he manifests the world by giving form, but through a series of determinations.
Okay, let me ask you something. In other philosophy of astrologies, the anima mundi is an important category. Is the anima mundi present in Morin's work?
Well, I would say it is. I'm not aware of him using that word, but I haven't read the books not translated to English. Because what the world is the primum caelum, the first heaven, is the first thing the divine manifests, and it is the thing most like God in the physical world. And as God is the first absolute cause, the unmoved mover in Aristotle's terms, but the Christian God in Morin's, the primum caelum is the first physical cause, and therefore the thing most like God in the physical world. It kind of reminds me of Plato's realm of forms. Others who know Plato better than I would could agree or disagree and clarify that for me. But I kind of think of it that way. In the primum caelum, everything that is or can be exists in immanent or virtual form or potential form, and it becomes actualized through the chain of causation in a quite Aristotelian way that brings things finally down to the sublunary world. In the last chapter of book 21, chapter 16 of section 2, I think it's a beautiful chapter about how the planets are, Morin calls them the governors of the world, God's regents on earth, and the other phrase is escaping me right now. Regents and they are the planets embody divine will. And
Okay.
and so the cosmos is a structure that manifests divine will through the primum caelum as potential, and then through the signs and planets down to us on the earth. And we are the last thing that can participate in causing our fate. Divine will comes to us as fate, that which has been spoken and is caused. We're the last thing through our actions. Morin has a very nice statement that by our actions, we become the particular causes of our own effects. Where is freedom? In the gap between impulse, which is given us de sidere from the stars. Freedom lies in the gap between impulse and action. What we can do is change our response to celestial influence.
Would you know if Solan Mason, what's his name? Solan Mason.
Zoltan Mason.
Zoltan Mason. Would you know if Zoltan Mason would answer as you just did, or did he have another cosmology?
I don't know. Unfortunately, I didn't get to study with him or ask him things, although I've been very privileged and delighted to study with Robert Corre, who really carries on the...
Is Robert on
I don't know. I haven't asked him that.
So in the course with Robert Corre, the philosophy of astrology doesn't come into the picture of the course.
Not very much. The focus is on practice, which I love, and
which we will see next week when you do the delineation. Now back to your explaining the doctrine. What else would you tell us abstract today, or did we cover what you wanted to do today?
Well, I do have more. If you know, I would certainly like to mention at least a few of these things.
Okay, go ahead.
So debilities. We mentioned the importance of dispositors, and dispositors are great because they affect the celestial state of a planet. So especially if a planet is in is exalted, I'm always like, okay, but where's the dispositor? How is it placed? Because exaltation is an exaggerated condition. And when the tower gets real tall, it falls more easily. And I want to know if the dispositor is going to back up that exalted planet. And if it's disposed to an exalted planet, you wonder if whatever matter is being signified by those two planets has a realistic view of things, or has if it's a conscious being, or is realistic, understood realistically. And so I always want to see the dispositor of a planet not in domicile. And I even like to look at the exaltation ruler of a planet in domicile in a sign when the sign has an exaltation ruler, because I think it doesn't work as independently. The beauty of a sign in domicile with no dispositor, one great beauty is its great stability, and it's working in accord with its own nature on its own terms.
I was just wondering if somebody watching this video wants to have you as a private teacher, would you offer that service?
Yes.
How much would you charge? Do you charge per hour, or do you have a course, or how do you manage to teach people?
Well, I would just establish it with the person based on the meeting. Not time. I'd probably make it an hour and a half or so, and I've done a little bit of that.
So how many sessions would one need if somebody comes along watching this video? I want to learn with Penelope. How many sessions would you need to bring this person from zero to be able to delineate with clients?
To delineate the natal chart and not looking at forecasting techniques.
Yes,
I use the word prediction. Yeah. So It depends on how deeply they want to go and how much practice they need, how many charts they want to look at. But, probably, but you have to do aspects.
Let me give you an idea. Would it be 30 sessions or 60 sessions?
Maybe, let's say 30.
30. And you would charge for 1.5 hours how much dollars?
Well, it would be reasonable, and I'd work it out with the person.
So it depends on the
I have a,
situation the person is in. If he's rich, he pays more. If he's not so rich, he pays less.
yeah, yeah, I wouldn't be doing a lot of investigation into the person's wealth, but we would, I would make a proposal and see
Okay,
what the response is.
so what the
No.
viewers can take away from this talk today is you offer a complete basic course for 30 sessions. And how many sessions for the predictive?
Roughly.
Roughly the same?
Maybe, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a complete education with you would cover 60 sessions.
Yeah, I mean, again, using the word complete because there'd be a lot more to say.
Okay,
But that's a rough
speculate.
estimate.
Okay, that's the minimum. What would be the premium approach for somebody without any knowledge? To be a premium delineator in Morin's doctrine, are we talking about 200 sessions?
No, because once the person gets the basics, they can study Morin. They can practice and learn, teach themselves. They can, we're lucky to have James Holden's translations of most of the astrologically focused books and also Anthony Lewis's. And now a real translation of book 21 and not an abomination.
And
so,
if he speaks Latin, he can read the book 1 to 8 as well. So he has the whole 26 books.
1 through 12, yeah, and book 20, which Holden didn't translate.
So basically, you would say 60 sessions is more or less enough. You don't need a premium education for everything because you can do that by yourself.
Yes, once you understand, you start to understand Morin. People seem to have a hard time understanding. I mean, the sentences are long, and you need to review them, start again at the top of a sentence sometimes. And you need to, once you start learning the things that he mentions in one place, clarify things he mentions in another. And I would love to see people reading Morin more, especially book 21, because it is the foundation.
It's not so easy to get into contact with you. Do they have to go through Wessex Astrology, or do you want to give the email address here?
I don't mind giving my email address.
Go ahead.
Proton Mail, PROTON mail.com is the site. So it's Great Art 108 GREATART 108 at protonmail.com. I'm happy to receive emails.
Okay, so back to the doctrine. Continue with your lecture.
So where were we? What was I speaking about? Get me back there. Dispositors. Yeah, so they affect the celestial state of a planet, of the disposed planet. They also move that planet's action through time. So, and through the houses. They affect also the celestial state and are essential for house combinations, which is a beautiful and powerful technique. And I think completely indispensable. I couldn't pick up a chart and not immediately start combining houses, and also immediately just automatically now starting to derive houses. But Morin says you look at the dispositor for celestial state and to make house combinations. But he rejects what my teacher, Robert Corre, and I believe his teacher, Zoltan Mason, calls the final dispositor. I use the final dispositor. So there's the planet, its dispositor. Morin says to go past that, the influence becomes too attenuated and stops at the dispositor. But I'd say that's to a great extent true of celestial state, although at times, especially when there's the dispositor is an exaggerated condition, I want to see its dispositor, but which would be the final dispositor. Excuse me. But it also affects the terrestrial state and combines houses, which I hope to get to in a moment. But the beautiful thing is that as Robert Corre teaches, and as I love to apply, a planet begins an action, its dispositor continues the action, and its final dispositor completes the action. You get to see an action move through, a planet's action move through time to from its beginning, middle to its end, to the result of it. I find that wonderful. And even with celestial state, you move through time. Say a debilitated planet begins with a problem in its action, a weakness or a corruption. Morin often uses the word corruption when he talks about planets in exile. And if its dispositor is well conditioned, things become better over time. And that's a very nice rule. And the opposite is also true. If it starts out in a good celestial condition, a good essential dignity, or other factors of celestial state too, but particularly sign occupation, dignity and debility by sign occupation, things can get worse over time. So dispositors, so revealing, so important. And if there's an aspect between the planet and its dispositor, very helpful to the planet. Again, quoting Robert, and I hope I'm quoting him correctly, I think I am. The most important aspect a planet can receive is from its dispositor. And a correlate rule is the most important aspect a house cusp can receive is from its ruler. Very useful rules. My Jyotish teacher said, even a malefic aspect even a malefic, the aspect of a malefic ruler to the house cusp will benefit the house because, and again, I hope I'm quoting correctly, even a brigand will protect his own house.
Now, may I ask you something? When I look in your book 21, how many books of Morinus do I need to read to cover what you covered in this video today about the doctrine? I suppose it's not enough to read book 21, right?
You get a lot of this in book 21, but I would certainly, and we haven't even gotten to aspects. Morin devotes three entire chapters of section 2 of book 21 to aspects. And he talks about how very important they are and how very, like, I think he says he wrote a separate book, book 16 on aspects. And I think he opens that book with the statement, I think this is where it is, that it's the most complex. And so 3 chapters, plus in another chapter of section 2 of book 21, chapter 12, he summarizes the effects of the planets by the effects of the planets and their aspects. He has an entire chapter that summarizes a lot of book 21, which so
basically,
chapter.
I would suggest from now on, we don't continue with the theory of the doctrine, because now I think it's obvious you need to read the book, right?
Well, I think you should. May I just say something about analogy, and then I'll
what chapter in book 21?
Relinquish.
What chapter of book 21 would that be?
Well, it's throughout. You see comments on analogy throughout. And, I have a very detailed index in the back of the translation. Okay. And so it's easy to find. But may I say a few words about analogy?
Yeah, okay. Final part for the doctrine is an analogy. And then we do a little bit of practice, okay?
Okay, all right. So analogy is very important. So as I mentioned early, each planet has an analogy with a whole class or category of earthly things. The planets, in fact, as governors of the world and God's regents on earth, are, they divide the world into categories.
May I interrupt
signs in Morin's
may I interrupt for that? A benefit for our German viewers. We have the privilege of a book about analogies from Rüdiger Dahlke and Nikolaus Klein. It's called The Senkrechte Weltbild, the vertical cosmology. And they do in the book analogies like you are talking now. Continue. This is only, you have to read German because it's not translated. It's the Senkrechte Weltbild and it's about analogy, but it's not available in English.
Yeah. Let's see, what was I saying? That, analogy. So each planet, they're the governors of the world, and the thing most like God, they're the governors of the world. And they categorize the world. Interestingly, in Jyotish, Ganesha is the patron deity of Jyotish and is the Lord of categories. It's about dividing the world into categories. Just to say very briefly, in Morin's cosmology and in its theory of the formation of the signs, section 1 of book 14, in most of the astrological books, the first section is, in many of them, it sets out theoretical considerations, and the second section in general is more practical. So book 14, section 1 includes his theory of the formation of the signs. And the planets, and book 13, section 1, the formation of the planets, given their essential natures and active virtue. And the signs are determined and given their essential nature and active virtue in accord with the nature and virtue of their ruling planets. So Aries, it has the nature of Mars, as does Scorpio, and also of the exaltation and triplicity rulers, though particularly the domicile ruler. So analogy. So if a planet is located in a house located in or otherwise influences a house with which it has an analogy, especially if its celestial state, its condition comports with the actions or matters described, it acts very powerfully to realize those matters. Sun in the 10th in good celestial state, honors. Saturn in the 12th in poor celestial state, illness, exile, suffering through hidden enemies. But there's also counter analogies. Saturn in the 10th has a counter analogy, but if he's in a good celestial state, he can bring honors, though because he's a natural malefic with a contrary analogy, bring them with difficulties of one or another kind. And so the benefics in good condition, I highly recommend section 2, chapter 2 of book 21, where Morin states what a single planet in or ruling a house will do based on its benefic or malefic nature, its good, poor, or middling celestial state, and its influence, location, or rulership in a fortunate or unfortunate house. Just very, very practical characterizations of what a planet will do. And the next chapter, chapter 3, is on how when there are multiple planets in or ruling a house, you have to assess each planet on its own terms and collectively with the others. But he gives in that chapter rules about how to identify the principal significator of the house, of matters of the house, and otherwise assess what happens collectively when multiple planets are located in or rule a house. A planet located in a house, I'm trying to say things I can't resist saying, Volker, quickly. A planet located in a house is always going to be a principal significator. A planet ruling comes next. Location is powerful, and that is the most efficacious determination, which you see in operation in a very fundamental way in the technique of house combinations.
I think what we learned today in this video is one very important aspect. If you are an astrologer who have learned psychological astrology, be there to learn Morinus, because it's not so easy to learn as what you did in your astrological education, just to learn the normal psychology astrology. So basically, you not only need to read a lot, you might need the course of Robert Corre, or you might need the private tutoring of Penelope Sitter. But what you really demonstrated in this talk today is there is so much more in Morinus Doctrine than what you read in a normal introduction, a book of astrology in psychological astrology. So we are very much looking forward to see that demonstrated next week. But today, for the finale today, could you put up your screen with these two charts of myself, where we only look at ascendant and Jupiter and the difference. And I wanted to ask you, how much influence, in my case, has the difference of the houses systems? We look at the whole sign house system and we look at Regiomontanus. And when you put it up on the screen, the people will understand what I mean, how much different the chart is.
Yeah. Let me give it, if I may take a moment, Volker. I just realized I don't know how solar fire.
I stopped the recording.
Oh.
So we had some difficulties to finding a proper way to showing what I wanted to ask. So I take my homepage to put the question to Penelope. And this is, I have here on the site astrotalk.von under Häusersysteme Deutungsfragen, I have Regiomontanus without the outer planets, and I have whole sign houses without the outer planets. And the interesting aspect, if you look at the whole sign houses, you have Jupiter and Venus in the third house, and Jupiter is the ruler of the ascendant. And if you look at the Regiomontanus without the outer planets, you have Jupiter and Venus in the second house, and Jupiter is the ruler of the first. And my question to Penelope is, if you have a situation like that in two different house systems, and this Jupiter-Venus conjunction changes from the third house to the second, doesn't that mean a drastic difference in delineation?
Yes, and quite a bit more than that is quite different. May I come back to your question and start somewhere else?
Yes, sure. Go ahead. The stage is yours. I was just wondering how this is a demonstration how house system influence delineation.
Oh, very much. In Morin's method, and Morin says in book 21 at the end of, I think it's book 21, that to have the proper house system, yeah, I'm sure it is absolutely essential to the art, because we can't bring the sky, he doesn't say it this way, but we can't bring the sky to earth without the houses. This is how the planets come, the celestial bodies come to earth. So may I share my screen with the Regiomontanus?
Yes,
and talk about that, and
yeah,
then
sure do that.
Then we'll go to whole sign. I wish I could put them up together, but I'm having that problem. I think this is it.
I stopped the recording. Okay, so we are back in the recording now. Go ahead.
So here's Volker's chart, his natal chart. I don't call it horoscope because the horoscope is the ascendant. It's a natal figure or natal chart or the radix. We always enter the chart. If I say more than you want, let me know. We always enter the chart through the ascendant. In whole sign houses, it's only the horizon that connects earth and sky, that brings the sky to earth. Volker has Sagittarius rising. Volker is Sagittarius. He's a child of Jupiter. And the first thing we do is we look to see, are there any planets located in the first house? location is the most efficacious determination, most powerful influence. Yes, a beautiful sun in triplicity in his element, fire, in Sagittarius. Very nice. Then we look to his dispositor because he's not in domicile. Oh, his dispositor, because he's in the ascending sign, is the ascendant ruler, Jupiter. And Jupiter is placed in Regiomontanus quite late in the third, fairly late, 19, well, not so very late. And he is
it's placed in the second, right?
Oh, I meant second. Thank you. Thank you. I misspoke. Thank you. Peregrine. So you always say nature, benefic, celestial state. In a malefic sign, Saturn, and then you look at that Saturn and you say, oh, in triplicity, because he rules the earthy Capricorn and therefore is in his element in Earth.
And now there's a question here. In the whole sign houses, the Jupiter Venus move into Aquarius, which has Saturn as the Aquarius ruler. And this is a different Saturn, right? You have to differentiate if you have a Capricorn Saturn or if you have a Aquarius Saturn as the ruler of a sign. And the delineation in this case, here we have the Saturn as a Capricorn Saturn, and in the whole sign houses we have the Saturn as an Aquarius ruler. And that's the difference. Could you in general, in an abstract term, how do you differentiate the Saturn in Aquarius and the Saturn in Capricorn?
I'm not following you, Volker. So Jupiter is in Aquarius in both. That won't change by house system, of course. And Saturn is in Virgo. So
but house-wise, in this Regiomontanus, Jupiter is in a Capricorn house, right?
You mean Capricorn is on the cusp?
Yeah, well, the second house is Capricorn, right?
And that would be true. That would be true in whole sign as well, because you have Sagittarius rising in whole signs.
Oh, the Aquarius is oh, this doesn't show where Aquarius starts. Okay, I understand.
Well, it starts like right here. You can probably see my cursor. It starts right about there. Starts once.
Yeah, okay, I understand what you mean, but that means which ruler is relevant for this second house? Is it the Capricorn Saturn or the Aquarius Saturn?
Both. The most powerful ruler of a house is, except I think in very rare circumstances something else might be the case, but is the most important, I should say, ruler is the ruler of the cusp.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And that's Capricorn.
Yes, it is. And then the second ruler of the house is also Saturn, because Aquarius occupies a large part of the second house.
But then you have an Aquarius Saturn, which is a different Saturn. The Saturn of Aquarius is different from the Capricorn Saturn.
Same Saturn, but relates to the sign differently. Morin actually has a passage about that. He's talking about determining he's talking about the elemental nature of the planets and the signs. And he says that both of Saturn signs, and you can apply this to the other planets, have a Saturnine nature. Both Capricorn and Aquarius have a Saturnine influence. Okay. Morin distinguishes celestial influence from elemental force.
So basically, what you're saying is in this situation, the Regiomontanus house system has the dominant ruler, a Capricorn Saturn, whereas in the whole sign houses, where the third house would start in Aquarius, there the Aquarius Saturn would be the dominant ruler and not the Capricorn. So there is a little bit of difference how to delineate, right?
Well, there are differences how to delineate for sure. But let me just say, I wouldn't use the term Capricorn and Aquarius Saturn. I would say it's the same Saturn. He says it's the same influential nature. It's a different elemental nature in the
Okay.
two signs.
The coloring is different.
Yeah, and Saturn acting as the ruler of his feminine sign. I never totally understood this. Robert said something about it. I always felt a little like I wanted to follow up on it, but we'll just say that elementally they act differently. That's what I feel comfortable saying.
Okay, I did interrupt you. Go ahead. Continue.
Let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, so we start with the ascendant. We say it's you have a male, mutable, fiery sign on the ascendant. You are the child of Sagittarius, the child of Jupiter. The sun beautifully placed there in triplicity, although it does receive these difficult aspects from the ninth house, Regio house.
Yes.
And so then we go and we look at his dispositor. We say, oh, okay, that's called the secondary ruler of the ascendant. The dispositor of a planet, of a house ruler, is Morin calls the secondary ruler of the house, and says that it often is revealed. It's often very powerful in revealing the actions and the significations. He says it nicely. Peregrine in a malefic sign. And then we look to the dispositor because he's not in his domicile. And we see, oh, Saturn nicely placed in a fortunate house, the ninth, a beautiful house, in triplicity because he is that rules an earthy sign. So that it's a malefic sign, but a malefic in good celestial state. And then we go, oh, how nice. Venus in triplicity. She's in triplicity in air and earth because she rules an airy and an earthy sign. So we see no other aspects. Just I like to go from the point and just go counterclockwise around the chart so I don't miss anything. I don't like jumping here and there. So I just run my eyes around the chart and say, oh, no other aspects. So this is a well-supported Jupiter. And oh, isn't this great? He sends a close aspect, almost partile, 2 degrees and 28 or 26 minutes, and 3 degrees and 42 minutes, almost partile and approaching. So that the most important aspect house can receive is from its ruler. And we like that very much. So we start out, let me go on a little further. Then we ask next, what are so location, rulership, aspect. Now we go around and we say, besides Jupiter, who aspects? Oh, Venus, another benefic in triplicity, and Jupiter in a very sound celestial state, peregrine and otherwise well-conditioned. And those are the aspects we see. So nicely aspected. We're liking what we see so far. You're directed to second house matters. What was I going to say? Oh, let's take some, besides this conjunction to Jupiter, Morin recognizes the dodectal, what modern astrologers call the semisextile, only when it's very narrow, and that arises from his theory of how the signs are formed, the 12-part division being so essentially important to his theory and cosmology. And so we see this is partile. So it's only, it's 9 minutes. So he would give that a fairly weak influence, but an influence. So we see Jupiter, the ascendant ruler, the only ascendant ruler, because that's really too little of Capricorn to make Saturn's share significantly in first house rulership, only a couple of degrees, is triply determined, you could say, to the second house. We're going to say second house matters. You're directed toward them. Where the ascendant ruler goes, you're directed toward those matters. You combine second house matters with the first. And we see Jupiter is determined to the second by location and by conjunction to Venus in the second, and by dodectal, which is weak, for Mercury in the second. So what I would say is you're very much directed to second house matters.
So, but that was the starting point, because if I go to whole sign houses, the whole thing changes to third houses, because then here is the cusp of the third house in whole sign houses. So that changes everything, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Can I just say a few more things and then get to that?
Yeah, okay.
You're very practical about second house matters, and also very fortunate. This shows good fortune, even though these planets are late in the second. A planet conjunct the cusp has a much more powerful influence on the house than planets later in the house. But still, that's still pretty far from the cusp. And there are definitely these two benefics in good condition, and Mercury, a malefic, also in good condition, in triplicity, very practical. So three very fundamental meanings of the second. Wealth, of course. You're going to have a practical approach to wealth, to your finances, and you're going to have good fortune. And Jupiter, in fact, has an analogy to wealth. We'd love to see Jupiter in good condition in the second. And other meanings of the second, what goes into your mouth and what comes out of your mouth. So your speech, not the ideas or what's communicated, which is the third, what's communicated verbally or intellectually, but what's communicated, the voice itself, the quality of the voice, and it's benefic, and there's no real restraint in this voice, even though Mercury is disposed to Saturn, which gives restraint. Notice this is an exchange of signs, Virgo and Capricorn. So
it's a reception, right?
Yeah, let's see, it is, because they're both in Earth, so it's a mutual reception.
Yeah.
And they exchange domiciles. Notice also that Mercury is in a mixed exchange with Mars. Mars is ruling Capricorn by exaltation. Mercury is ruling Virgo so in some way exaltation and domicile. So actually not mixed, both mixed and unmixed by exaltation and by domicile.
And now we would need another 2 hours to elaborate on all these receptions, a lot of mutual reception. And let's finish this little demonstration with when you change to whole sign houses. Could you put up the whole sign house, or should I?
No, that you need to. But may I say a couple more things here?
Okay.
Because your second house matters. Also, the quality of your voice. And do you sing?
I did in choir. Yeah, I did.
Oh, connected to the ninth, religious singing, right? Very nice.
Yeah.
And Jupiter, also what you put into your mouth. You take good, these are benefic planets in good condition. You take care of what you put into your mouth.
You mean like what I'm eating?
What you're eating.
Well, that's true, because I'm the chief executive of a citizen homepage for health, and there is the natural lifestyle and the supplements, and that's a lot of. I can show in the end of the video. I can show what I meant. Continue.
Okay, and I want to say, using house combinations, even though Leo is on the cusp of the ninth, with the sun, the ruler of Leo, gone to the first, you can say your beliefs, your philosophy, your higher education is inborn in you because the ruler is there. Very nice. In Sagittarius, with an analogy to belief and religion, this is part of your, I believe you have a mystical approach, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's part of it, even though Saturn is there, which is interesting in an earthy sign. So it's both mystical and very practical. There's both happening here. But your religious beliefs or your higher education is the cause of what you put into your mouth. Let me I got distracted. Your beliefs are a cause of what you eat. You believe in eating well and intelligently. That's a very intelligent Mercury connected with the ascendant ruler. It brings intelligence to the ascendant. So that's what. And one more thing I want to say, and then I'm happy to go on. What you see when the same planet rules two houses, those houses become connected. But here we also have two signs. We have a single sign influencing two houses. So this connects 2 and 3. That's a form of house combination, both because Saturn rules both and because the sign is in both. So already we're going to connect 2 and 3 strongly, and we're going to we also see that the 9th house is very important in your chart, as is the 2nd. So God and your financial security, Capricorn is an earthy sign, an element of security. So as you say, there's much more that could be said, but we'll say that.
Okay, so give you free get out of the screen that I can put up my screen.
Okay, let's see here. It's gonna be a little hard for me to see you. What's the problem? To see your
let's see whether I can override you. Yeah, I can. Okay.
Good. I hope I can see you.
So we got Regiomontanus. This is again this, and then now we are going to the whole sign houses without the outer planets. And here's the difference for the viewers. In this whole sign houses chart,
I'm not seeing the chart. I don't know why. I think it's a problem on my side.
Okay, though. So okay, I stopped the recording to get this sorted out. So now we are sharing the screen for me, and here you have the whole sign houses chart and what we were discussing. Before we continue with that, I wanted not to forget to show what I meant about the health thing. I have this Bürgertreff Gesundheit, and if you go on BTGH von abisw.de, you find a lot in English, and this is all health. This is all about health and supplements and eating. And it's very Jupiterian, it doesn't stop. And you learn how to eat a lot of vitamin C and vitamin D and all that. So that was in connection what you just told us. So here we have the situation that Jupiter Venus changed from the 2nd house to the 3rd house. What does that make with the delineation?
In whole sign houses, the first thing I would comment on, it puts Virgo on the midheaven. So in Regio, Libra is on the midheaven. So you have this beautiful conjunction in Regiomontanus houses of the 10th ruler and the 1st ruler, and they're both benefics in good condition. And you always love to see the ascendant, the 1st house and the 10th house connected. Often it's through the rulers or conjunction or aspect, or the ruler of one in the other. That is a very good, that bodes well for the future, especially when there are these nice benefics in good condition.
You're not talking about this chart, right?
I'm talking about in Regiomontanus, but here
Oh,
you
okay.
lose that unless, except to the extent that you take the midheaven, which I guess I haven't used whole sign houses. I know a little about it, but I guess you could say, well, but that's also beneficial to have the not the 10th ruler, but the midheaven ruler in the 11th connected. I mean the with the midheaven in the 11th, but that's, to me it seems much weaker, and it's very beneficial. It's a very nice setup in Regiomontanus, fine, but not as noteworthy by any means in whole sign houses. And in the third, so you're directed to third house matters, which you are also in Regiomontanus. You combine second and third house matters. You make money by communicating, but that shows you very much uh, directed toward communication, means of communication. You're doing these podcasts, and I see that you have a big website with a lot of posts on it, and so you're very much directed and benefically and fortunately directed to communicating. Um,
Which would
yes,
fit more with this chart, right?
yes, it would
So
indeed.
basically, we can stop here because we don't have one. I don't want to have the viewers to turn off because we do too much about this chart.
Yes.
But basically, what I wanted to demonstrate is that the delineation changes significantly if you change the house system. In this case,
Mhm.
from and to show the viewers what you can have. The
May I
more
say one more word about that I think is very striking?
yes,
May I say
okay,
one more
yeah,
word?
sure,
The whole sign system puts the two malefics and the moon in your 10th,
yes,
and that squares the sun in the first. Now, that's a connection between 1 and 10,
yes.
but that includes the 12th ruler, Mars, and the, let's see, uh,
The
eighth
fifth.
ruler, Saturn, right? Am I seeing this correctly? It's a little hard for me to see the chart.
Okay, the 12th house
Oh, no,
is
no, excuse me.
is
Excuse me. I got that wrong.
the
Yeah.
Aries is the fifth house.
What I mean is the moon. So both
Oh, okay.
the 12th and 10th ruler and 8th ruler, I guess I'm getting a little tired. Both the 12th and 8th ruler in the whole sign houses are in the angular 10th house, and they're elevated, the most powerfully um, effective house. And so two malefics and the 8th and 12th rulers square the sun. And I would expect to see illness as part of your destiny, part of your affecting your actions and
Well, I have that
threats to
because
your life.
I have an arthrosis of the left hip since 1986, so that would be compatible.
Yeah, especially if you see, yeah, the hip, the ninth house.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Basically, what we are seeing here
yeah.
is how important, and here the moon is it's a night chart, so the moon is the sect ruler, so that comes into the picture as well. But we stop here for the delineation. Basically, what I wanted to demonstrate is, and that is why we will concentrate next week. We get only Regiomontanus, and we get a complete delineation by Penelope Sitter. And I thank you very much for demonstrating how changing the house system. Oh yeah, I wanted to show for the viewers how extremely that can come if you take Morinus house system without the outer planets, and here the ascendant and the sun are situated in the 12th, and that is completely different than as well. So basically, what we are seeing here, changing of the house system matters. And last question. This is a lot of fortune. In reality, a lot of fortune is here because it's a different calculation. One question for Penelope. What is the reason that you never were convinced to use Morinus house system?
Um, Moran doesn't use it. in Astrologia Gallica, his example charts are in Regiomontanus.
Okay.
I don't like the ascendant being removed, the first house cusp being removed from the ascendant, because especially for, say, for instance, for directions, if I think it's much more coherent and powerful to have the first cusp and the ascendant coincide. And the
Okay.
same with the midheaven.
Okay, we leave it at that, and we are very, how do you say this in English? We wait very excited for your demonstration next week. And for today, I thank you very much for taking the time for a little bit exhausting session with me. Next week is easier for you because that's your terrain. I will only ask if I don't understand what you're doing. Otherwise, it's your demonstration how to delineate Jean-Baptiste.
Ask away, ask away.
Yes, I will. So for today, thank you very much, Penelope, and thank you for the viewers who are still viewing this video. Danke fürs Vorbeischauen. And this time I make sure I stop the recording.